I encountered the modern-day home funeral after giving birth to my daughter at home with a midwife. My home birth allowed me to tap into the wisdom of my body, a wisdom that can only be summoned in occasions such as birth or death. This would have been impossible had I been in a hospital where all procedures are based in fear. Birth is not a medical condition, and neither is death. I had a home sweet home birth. Soon after, PBS aired the film A Family Undertaking, which documents the trend in returning to the practice of home funerals in the U.S. It served as my crash course in the history and corruption of the funeral industry, simultaneously working as a do-it-yourself home funeral tutorial. Beforehand, I didn't know this was even an option. Home funerals are legal in 44 states. They are against the law in Connecticut, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, Nebraska, and New York. My mother told me, funerals are for the living, not the dead. This is what she believed, and why we designed her funeral together. She'd been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and under the care of hospice was practicing her right to die at home. The Boulder-based nonprofit organization Natural Transitions provided the cardboard casket, after-death instructions, and if we wanted, the assistance of a death midwife. However, it was our wish to keep it in the family. Intentional hermits, my parents lived tucked away in the mountains, surrounded by aspens, still water, and rock formations. Someday I hope to also die on this land, and my husband plans on being buried there. No casket, just his body returning. When my mother died, I felt a tremendous relief. Not only had she been released from cancer, but because I knew exactly what needed to be done. Because there was something to do. I had spent months caring for her, and I wasn't ready to stop. Not yet. It feels criminal that this is precisely when we are expected to hand our loved ones over to so-called professionals, utter strangers, who whisk them away, zippered into body bags, to be assaulted by the brutal and toxic process of embalming, then refrigerated like pieces of meat. My first experience with death was when I was 9. When I finally saw my grandfather's body, I didn't recognize him. His hair was parted on the wrong side, and his face was orange. Rushed along a conveyor belt of viewers, I wasn't given the time I needed to process that he was gone. This is why my 10-year-old home-born daughter and my 20-year-old bonus daughter were at my side when it came time to care for the body of our matriarch. The comfort of home lessens or eradicates the fear of death, and the privacy allows a freedom in grieving that nowhere else can. The natural pacing that comes from keeping the body allows for a healing not possible with the cry-on-cue nature of the cookie-cutter funeral home funeral. Is it not ironic how the funeral industry appropriated the word home? How they mimic Victorian-era parlors where bodies were laid in wake? They make you pay for what you already have, and yet their home is never yours. Until the Civil War, home funerals were the only kind of funerals in the U.S. From war came the need to preserve bodies for the transport home. With embalming came the business of undertaking, which in turn institutionalized one of our oldest rites of passage. The more decent mom and pop funeral homes are quickly going out of business as corporations overtake the business of undertaking. Today, the average funeral costs between $6,000 and $10,000. A home funeral costs between $25 and $1,500. We applied plaster to my mother's face to cast her death mask. We washed her body with rose-infused witch hazel and dressed her in the peasant dress she'd chosen for cremation. Dry ice kept her body cool. Decomposition is so subtle, 3 days can easily pass without any noticeable signs, other than the paling of skin and the relaxing of the muscles. Friends arrived the following day. My mother loved mermaids, and a friend had made a mermaid tapestry to adorn the casket. The wake was spent gathering mica from the property and applying it to the mermaid as her scales. We lined the casket with flowers, photographs, goodbye letters, and the paper butterflies her granddaughters had made for her. It was a day-long meditation dedication. We told stories, drank wine, and relished in the laughter of the children and the life that was present in my mother's death. When I woke in the morning, my mother had wept 2 red tears. She was beginning to purge. It was time to say goodbye. Singing my childhood lullaby, we carried her to our van and drove her to the crematory. At 1:11, we witnessed as my mother turned to ash. Because of all the mica, her remains sparkle. My mother gave me the final gift of giving her a home, sweet home funeral.